Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host Sam Priestley, and as always we're joined with my lovely wife Emma.
Hello!
Today's going to be a slightly different episode, and one that I'm probably going to do maybe once every couple of months, and that is a question and answer session. So I've asked on previous podcast episodes to email me if you have any questions you want me to answer. A few people have sent in questions, and that's what we're going to be going through today. So Emma will read them out and ask me, and then hopefully we'll get a bit of discussion going. If you have any questions you want answered on the next episode of Questions Answer, then please email me at hello@sampriestley.com. Or if you can't remember that, just Google the Lazy Entrepreneur podcast and that'll take you to my website and you can click on the contact page there. Alright, you ready to get started?
I am. So, first question. Do you get many job offers now you're quite well known as an entrepreneur? What would convince you to take one of those job offers?
I think that before I started writing the blog, I thought that once I had a bit of a presence online, I would start getting contacted by loads of people. I'd start getting, press interest and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that was very ambitious of you.
Well, I thought that if I made it as a blogger, then I'd get loads of opportunities.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what other people have said in their podcasts and blogs. And that hasn't happened. The blog has been very successful, but, Google hasn't emailed me asking me to be their next CEO or anything.
Have you had any job offers?
I've had a couple, yes. I've had a lot of people asking for collaborations. A lot of people will send me an email saying something like, I have an idea for a business. I want you to advise on it. I will give you half the business in exchange for your advice, which is a very bad deal for them, and I've never taken anyone up on it. I have been offered a couple of jobs, mainly from small startups looking for a specific role, and them often people who I've already had contact with before. But I haven't had any offers of, say, consultancy work for any big businesses. I haven't had any offers of just plain job offers from big corporations or other kind of entrepreneurs who've already made it.
So to put it another way, what is the type of job offer that you would accept? So I know we've discussed some sort of consulting role in a big corporate and what that might look like a strategy role.
So generally I'm very, very happy with what I'm doing at the moment. And so if someone offered me a job, for me to take it, there would have to be something about it that really piqued my interest. And that would either be a role doing something that I couldn't do myself, or something that I find very interesting, maybe an experience that I haven't had before, so something that I think would be very good for my own personal development. Or I think if it was like a short term, like a year or two, and it paid a ridiculous amount of money, I'd probably also consider that. I think there's probably, I've no idea what the amount would be, but maybe if someone offered me, I don't know, £2 million a year or something like that for 2 years to go and do something, I think they'll find that very difficult
to turn
down because that money could have a lot of impact in the world, and I think it'd be pretty selfish of me to turn it down and choose just to lay about watching TV with you instead. The sort of job that I think people think that I have stuff against having a job. I don't have any. For a lot of people, having a job is a very good thing. Jobs can be very low stress if you're in the right jobs. It can be very stable, again, if you're in the right jobs. Knowing how much you earn each month definitely has its advantages. Yeah, for a lot of things, a lot of people, having your own job is a good way to go. I personally would struggle in a job, and it's one of the reasons why I started doing entrepreneurship in the first place. Is I really struggle in the mornings. I'm quite lazy. I'm also not very good with authority and being told what to do, that kind of thing.
And routine.
And I get bored quite quickly. So if I was doing the same thing day in, day out, I'd find it really difficult. And I'm kind of lucky enough that I've been able to find avenues that earn me enough money to live the life that I want without having to do stuff I find quite unpleasant.
Yeah.
But there are probably jobs out there that would really interest me. We've talked before. I think you've asked me a similar question before, and something like, let's say a really big company had a new product it wanted produced that was going to cost a lot of money. That'd be something I might be quite interested in running up.
In terms of the scale.
In terms of the scale, because that is a different thing.
Yeah.
It ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's something quite interesting. It's something that I haven't done before, a new experience. It's something that where the right amount of responsibility. So I don't think I'd want, if I got offered a job as CEO of a big company, I wouldn't want that. I'd rather be head of a particular development which had like a lot of free reign and a decent amount of budget.
Yeah.
There's that. I mean, obviously if a big company wanted me to do some consulting work for a couple of months, I'd probably be interested in that if it was the right sort of work, something I'm interested in. I think if a university wanted me to do some sort of something there, either on the research side or on the lecturing side, ideally a bit of both, I'd be quite interested in that as well.
So you're open to quite a lot of offers, actually. I thought you'd say no to most things.
Well, I think I would say no to 99.9% of things.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things out there that I would like to do.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is I wouldn't want to do a job that I didn't feel I was able to do well.
Yes.
So if I got offered to play football for Manchester United, that sounds great. It pays loads of money, but I'm terrible at football, so I wouldn't accept that job.
Yeah, it's high stress.
Yeah, like it being that bad at something, like it would just be stupid to me.
Yeah.
And not just a high stress, but also I wouldn't want. So I said that I'd probably accept a job for like £1 million for a few years. But why? What could I possibly do for a company that is worth them paying me that amount of money for a short input? Yeah. I don't think there's many things. So not only would they have to offer me a job that pays a lot, but I'd have to be convinced that it was worth it for the company to hire me. Yeah. I wouldn't want to just,
your value.
I wouldn't want to just be a leech on them.
Yeah.
So when you say there are lots of jobs I would do, in reality, there's very few jobs that I would be qualified for and would want to do.
Yeah.
And also bear in mind, the threshold of our life at the moment is very good. We have a very nice life. So finding something that is better enough or interesting enough to mean it's worth giving up the sort of the lifestyle we currently have would have to be quite difficult, quite high.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on to the next question. What are the most common mistakes you see in someone trying to start a new business?
That's a good question. I think I see two mistakes. There's loads of mistakes people can make which will lead to failure or to some other problems with a business. I think there's two that I see a lot. One of them is not working hard enough, not sticking at it. Which is quite obvious, right? You understand why people would fail doing that. The problem with business these days is the barrier to entry has got very, very low. And when something's easy to get into, when it's easy to start a new business, it's also easy to quit. And I see a lot of people giving up, especially on something like blogging, where the cost of entry is you can set up a blog or a website in an hour and it'll cost you £50. That's very easy to next day change your mind. So I think people give up before they've really given stuff a chance to go. I honestly believe that if you're working at the right thing and you work hard enough, you'll probably succeed. I don't think there's an intelligence threshold. I don't think you need to be clever enough, but I do think there is a work hard threshold that you need to be working above a certain amount in order for your business to work out.
And what else?
And then the other one is people working really hard at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I did another podcast on scalability and making sure your business is scalable, which is kind of what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But that is I see people who spend years and years working very hard on a business that
isn't scalable.
It's
not commercial.
That's very common. Isn't scalable. Now, even if they succeed, it's still not working out.
Yeah, there's a limit to how much they can achieve.
Yeah, like let's say you were an Uber driver. That in some ways is a business. You're self-employed, but it's not scalable. Yeah. Like even if you're working and you know everything, you know all the little loopholes to get the maximum value per hour. If you're the best Uber driver in the world, you're still capped at quite a small amount.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with freelancers, people running these type of businesses. Service businesses in particular, whether design work, programming, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, writing text.
Yeah, they price themselves at such a level that it's pretty much just limited by the amount of time that they can't expand, they can't scale, and so even though they're working really, really hard, they're not earning enough money to make it be worthwhile. So those are two big mistakes.
That sounds good. Okay, so the next question is. How do you think Brexit will affect your businesses? Is it too risky to start a new business now with the uncertainty of Brexit hanging over us? And how are you personally preparing for Brexit?
I've written a few blog posts about Brexit, not about my opinion on Brexit, but about what I'm doing about it and how it's affected me. So I'll link them in the show notes. I did another podcast on serendipity, which is the idea that just because I don't know what the future is going to hold, I know there will be opportunities there, and I want to position myself for when those opportunities come up. So my sort of approach with Brexit is that I don't know what is going to happen, but I do know that things will probably change. There'll be bad things that happen, and there'll also be opportunities that appear. And provided I'm prepared to take advantage of the opportunities and minimise my losses from the downsides, I think that I'll come out better from Brexit than if it didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's true from most things. If the world was always the same and there were no opportunities, there was no disruption, as they call it, then there'd be no opportunities for people like me to create new businesses or whatever.
Yeah.
But with the good is the bad. So how has it affected my business? Well, it's already affected some of my businesses. Just before the vote, I had a very big bill outstanding in a foreign currency for, £30,000 or something like that. And kind of overnight, the exchange rate went mental, and it cost me, if I'd paid it the day before, it would have cost me quite a lot, like quite a few thousand less. So in that sense, it has affected me. How do I think it will affect my businesses going forward? Well, my businesses are quite international. Pipe House Gin isn't, but particularly my table tennis business is international. So I think that'll be okay. Whenever the exchange rate changes, it makes, the goods I'm buying more expensive, but then it means that the profit I make from sales in foreign countries go up. So there's a bit of a balance there that I'm kind of okay with.
So you kind of diversified your kind of markets and your customers for table tennis, so you're kind of covered.
Yeah, and my personal investments are kind of global rather than just UK focused. So the impact of stuff happening in the UK is a bit diversified. I find it very difficult to say when you're preparing for something you don't know exists.
Yeah.
How do you
prepare?
How do you say that? I've given examples of stuff could happen. House prices could collapse, which would be a great opportunity to buy a house.
Yes.
Same with the stock market. Stock market, the business could still be worth the same amount, but then people want to invest less in the stock market, so you get a better deal from buying new investments. There's a bunch of things that could happen, and I don't want to make a prediction of what will happen. But how am I preparing for that? Well, from a money point of view, I've got quite a lot of my money tied up in short-term investments that I can take out very quickly. That is through peer-to-peer lending, mainly very short-term peer-to-peer loans, which I'll link to a little bit more details on in the show notes. And in terms of my time, I purposely have space in my schedule for working on a new business or a new opportunity if it comes up.
Sounds good. Are you worried that Pipehouse might be affected by Brexit?
So Pipehouse is a business where we are purchasing pretty much everything from inside the UK, and we're selling kind of solely to people in the UK. And those type of businesses are pretty stable when it comes to outside exchange rate changes and our relationships with the rest of the world. So if we're outside of the free trade zone of the EU, that won't really affect Pipehouse because it's all done inside the UK.
Yeah.
But what there could be an opportunity. Let's say our currency gets really devalued. That means that we might be able to, people who wouldn't want to buy our gin before in euros because it was too expensive might now be able to because it's got cheaper for them and our costs stay the same. So there could be that. That's one opportunity that there could be. An exchange rate difference in the other way, I don't think would affect Pipehouse gin that much.
Yeah, it might mean that the cost to produce our gin slightly goes up.
So it goes up because of the raw material costs,
yes.
But our raw materials are
quite a small
quite a small part of that, yeah.
Business.
So a 20% increase in, say, the cost of the bottles.
Grain spirit, yeah, okay.
Yeah, cost of bottles, for instance, or the cost of like the ink in our printers for the labels would have a very small impact.
Yes.
Whereas a 20% increase in the amount we could sell it for would have a huge impact on us.
Yeah. That sounds good. Okay, moving on. You have said in a few blog posts that you don't believe in buying a house. Why is that?
I don't not believe in buying a house. I think that most people overvalue real estate as an investment. They think it's a better investment than it is. Yeah. But for most people, buying a house is the best investment they'll ever make because once you own a house, you can't take the money out and do anything with it.
Yeah.
It locks you into a very long-term investment, and long-term investments are generally the better investment when you're talking about stuff like real estate or the stock market.
And also, there's a very practical side about buying a house in that you've got somewhere to live.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like if rents go mental and suddenly you've got nowhere to live, you've still got your house. So I don't not believe in buying a house. And I have invested in property before, so you can look in, again, this seems to be what I'm saying for every question. I'll link to it in the show notes that somebody, my blog post on it. I did one about, so for everyone listening, we don't own the house we live in, we rent. And why do we rent? Well, it's not because I don't believe that for a lot of people it's worth having a house. I know that we're not going to be here for that long. I know that renting in this area is very cheap relative to buying. I know that it leaves a lot of money free, so it leaves to invest in other things. So it's not like I'm spending the money that I would otherwise spend on a house. I'm not spending that money on champagne. That is being invested into other things. And as we said with the previous one, that is sitting there waiting for an opportunity to come up that will be worth a much better investment than buying a house. If you're renting, the most amount you're ever going to have to pay on that house is the rent. If you're buying, there's almost no limit to how much the amount you're paying in your mortgage is the least you're ever going to pay.
Yeah.
So with rent, if something goes wrong, if there's a leak in the roof, if there's an earthquake and it falls over, if our washing machine's broken down and we're waiting for the landlord to repair it currently.
We don't have to pay for that.
We don't have to pay for it. That's someone else's problem.
We don't have to worry about it as well.
Whereas if you buy a house, anything that happens
is your responsibility.
And if the roof collapses and you get a £50,000 bill, that is you who has to pay that.
Yeah, you've got to pay it. It's not an option.
Yeah, or else you don't have a roof.
Yeah.
So when people price it up, I think they often say, well, my rent is this amount, my mortgage will be this amount. That's basically the same. No, actually owning a house is expensive. Yeah. So one of the blog posts I wrote is called "The Maths Behind My London Property Investment." So I bought this flat. Pop bought it with my parents a while ago for a few reasons. One of them was as an investment. One of them was in order to take a mortgage out because they're quite good deals at the moment, and I thought I could invest the money better than the interest that I pay is. And also as a hedge against things going really bad, because as I said earlier, if rents skyrocket, at least I'll have a house that I can move into, even if I'm not living there currently.
Yeah.
I've talked around in a few circles here. Generally, again, there's a few calculators out there where you can, predict how house prices are going to change in the future, how you think rent's going to change in the future, and it will tell you, the value versus buying versus renting, how long you plan to live there. So I'll link to them, but generally, buying a house is a very complicated decision. It's probably going to be the most expensive thing you'll ever do. People go into huge amounts of debt for it. I don't really like debt that much anyway. Yeah.
You've got to weigh up your options.
And I think people assume it's a really good deal to always buy a house. And it means that people are moving into houses they can't really afford. They can afford it at the current interest rates, but paying 3% interest is
not sustainable.
Historically completely unheard of.
Yeah.
You can go back to like the 80s and whenever, and interest rates would be like 15%. Probably more realistic at some point they're going to hit like 6%. And a lot of people can't afford their house at 6% interest rates.
Wow, that's really scary. We've been watching The Big Short over Christmas. Do you think there's going to be another... Do you think there's currently a housing bubble, and do you think it's going to burst again anytime soon?
I think there is a housing bubble definitely here in the UK. So the reason the housing bubble, the 2008 financial crash happened wasn't so much because of the housing bubble, it was because of the overexposure in mortgages that the banks were, where they were kind of 10 to 100 times leveraged on mortgages. So
because mortgages were seen as very stable.
Yeah, and so they were like taking out mortgages on mortgages.
Yes.
So it's amplifying the risk of something going wrong.
Yes.
So I think there will be at some point, house prices will go down, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I think they're pretty unaffordable at the moment. I think that will happen. I don't necessarily think that will be like a financial crash like in 2008. It's probably more likely to be a gentle decline over the course of a few years. There's a lot of other countries where house prices haven't really changed in the last 15 years. They kind of go up a bit, then they go down a bit. And, realistically, that is, what we could see. It go down a little bit now, and then we'll have like a 10, 15 year period where they don't really change.
Yep.
And then by the time that period's over, wages and stuff will have gone up, and then house prices will start growing again.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is most likely to happen. But again, serendipity, I don't know what's going to happen. I just want to be ready for whatever happens.
Sounds good.
I think we're going to stop the questions now. That's about 25 minutes. There are a few more questions. We've gone a bit slower than I'd hoped. So we'll do another episode soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.